Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to take part in this conference. I'm grateful to the organizers for the capability, for the chance to talk about my experience. Thanks, Anton, for inviting me as well. We're going to talk about machine translation, how we've implemented it in our company and how it all started. It all started in 2019. We started serious experiments, so to say, with machine translation after talking with our colleagues from Electronic Arts and Supercell, and we thought if they can do it, why can't we? So it was more like a competition interest for us. So we've ended up in 2019 having the English to Russian pair completely switching over to post-editing, apart from marketing materials where you mostly do transcreation rather than translation. The rest of the languages switched over to post-editing in February 2020. Before that, we were playing with all the engines that we could reach. Now we're experimenting with trainable engines, but the result leaves much to be desired. We have 11 target languages. The source one is the Russian one. The rest is being English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Turkish, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, simplified Chinese, Portuguese, Turkish. So you can only see my face in this presentation. The reason is I did not prepare because I have been sick with COVID for the last couple of weeks and I just didn't have the strength to prepare properly. So we were comparing the engines, and we were using one criteria: how much time the translator is spending on post-editing, and also whether a translator likes to work with this or that engine. After half a year of wondering, our team univocally selected DeepL because that engine seemed to have been offering the better results. Our translators are perfectionists. That's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it comes to post-editing because if a translator doesn't like a certain phrase to a certain extent, he or she just deletes it and rewrites it completely. DeepL showed that the number of completely rewritten segments, rewritten from scratch, is several times lower than the other engines allowed us to reach. But machine translation is not a universal cure, and DeepL is not the king of engines. Not the slightest. What are the benefits? The speed of translation. It's very difficult to measure because texts vary in difficulty. There's a certain number of fuzzy matches, personal problems of translators, and other objective and subjective factors. So the gain in speed is about 55% depending on all those factors. So if we're talking about ideal conditions, we never test those engines, just like Nintendo does. I don't like to overcomplicate the process if there's no purpose behind it. We did not have a purpose to test the engines for academic or commercial use, so we did not do that. What we did is we were updating our games with about 1,500 words per iteration, and we were analyzing the results offered by machine translation by using a translator and an editor. The task was to reduce overhead, to reduce the cost while maintaining quality. The clearest solution was to completely ditch the editing stage. Each language pair that we have uses two steps, two translators, and if we remove the editor out of this equation, the result will be of lower quality because no one would correct typos, no one would correct actual factual errors. How do we measure quality? We have acceptable and unacceptable errors. Unacceptable errors are major political or factual issues, or prevent a player from performing correct action in the game, so they block them from the game. These issues affect monetization, affect the image of a project, while acceptable errors are something related to the language issues but do not cause any blocking problems or prevent the audience from playing the game. So for TEP, we maintain the following rule: at maximum 1 unacceptable and 3 acceptable errors per 1,000 words of the source text, without taking into account placeholders or tags. If a translator or an editor made those mistakes without certain external factors, meaning that they have had context and images.
Now, what I like about the post-editing part is that when you have something done by the machine that the translator doesn't have to invent from scratch, they just have to edit it, which means that they get less tired, because all the translator needs to do is to measure whether the translation is accurate and correct it if not. Like I said, we have acceptable and unacceptable errors, and compared with a scenario when the translator does the translation from scratch, we get twice less of those, or fewer. Anyway, we apply machine translation when we have the MT, when we have the glossary, and the translators are familiar with the project. Now, regarding the discounts and the participants of the process. So we have essentially this machine and the translator that does the post-editing. Anything extra, we do that when we have some kind of doubt about the quality, but otherwise we don't. Regarding the discounts, it's all very simple, and it's all up to the translator. Some give us 30%, others don't give us any discounts at all, and usually we agree to what the translator offers, maybe do some negotiation and see what we can negotiate. The questions we ask are really very simple. First is whether the translator is ready to take on this assignment, and if yes, what their rate would be. And usually we don't require the answer right away. We first test the engine, play with it a little bit. And the translator has to want to do this, because we spend like up to 6 months negotiating the details and processes. We begin by discussing where every translator stands individually regarding machine translation, because usually the first response is, "Ooh, I'm not getting into that. Machine translation is disgusting." But then, when they see the output, when they get a chance to try it, they see that it is not as bad. Not bad at all. So we let them test the engines available in the market, and some of them even suggest that we try their engine, and we do that. We try whatever is compatible. And then we would compare our team against the experts we would find on LinkedIn, And I have to say that our team had, based on the results of that analysis, way more advantages because they know the project, unlike those MTPE experts who just added what is translated by the machine to an extent that it is readable. Some of them offer dynamic rates like 5 to 7 cents, and they would give you a decent piece of text. For 3 to 4, it will be something that looks like post editing. I mean, essentially, it looks like machine translation that was edited here and there, just something that was way too big to let it stay in the text. So now about the machine learning and the testing of the engines, we did perform some tests unsuccessfully, I should say. I will not be given any names, but essentially it is about the corpus of the text and what's already available, what's already there to give some platform for the training, some room for the training. And those out-of-the-box engines, they are usually not very smart at that point. So what you get as the output is something that just doesn't fit anywhere. Do you customize? Sure, you do. You can customize it, but will it benefit you in terms of the products? No, I mean, it won't. It won't be enough to fix anything, really. So let me just sum up what I've said using some basic facts, some plain facts. We do not use machine translation in marketing in new projects. We use it for something that we already know. We do not use machine translation with the texts that have a lot of wordplay or some references, cultural or otherwise. Some of our translators have left the team because they didn't want to do the post-editing anymore, but it was their decision within their rights. But those who stayed, they are well familiar with the machine translation and with the related projects. We get some good savings, like up to 30% on our projects. Those customized engines, they can work, but unless you train it, it just doesn't perform effectively, which means the majority of the engines. Do we use it for a game localization? I mean, the machine translation? Sure, why not? But you need to be very clear about your goals that you are hoping to achieve with a machine translation, because doing machine translation just for the sake of it is not a good idea. So you need to have a clear goal in mind. That would be all from me. If you have any questions, go ahead. Thank you. Thank you. And I believe we have a question. Hello, Misha. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. Do you work with the staff translators or do you outsource as well? Thing is, we work with freelancers. We outsource them, but we have contracts signed with them. So it's like semi-in-house, if you will. We do have staff editors for the key language pairs. So correct me if I'm wrong, your translators are paid for the work they do. They do not receive salaries, monthly salaries or otherwise. Yes, exactly. Thank you for the question. Apologies if I missed something, but could you a little bit more specific about the kinds of texts that you translate using the machine? I mean, when it comes to the style, the tone, some nuances, some details. If you have any specific examples where it could work. Usually, it is for the game, texts, City Builder, Megapolis, and the Wild West Farm. These are our projects where we use machine translation. Those are simple texts, not too much style, like, oh, have you heard we have a new sports arena? Let us engage more football players, or let's build more cars, or improve your local economy, collect more taxes, things like that. Something that is very simple and would not confuse the engine. Hello, Misha. Your colleague from Localizer, Sasha Shihin here. I hope you get well soon. And I can't wait for the time when the machines will conquer the humanity. When do you think that will happen? Well, I am not sure about my forecast. I mean, the Skynet would happen faster than the machines would take over the translation. Speaking on behalf of our project, we have a lot of phrasal expressions and other specificities that the machine just would not cope with, and the amount of text to be processed is tremendous. You cannot squeeze it into the machine. I mean, the machine does not process the comments, and it just does not give us the result that we need. Hello. Could you be a little bit more specific about the language pair? So the source is in Russian, and then the MTP is in English, or is it the other way around? How do you manage that? Yes, you're right. The source is in Russian, and then it is translated into English by a human or a machine, and then we use that, we translate that into the other languages. Hello, thank you for your presentation. My question is this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I understand, you said after TP you have 3 mistakes that you can okay, and there's one that is unacceptable. So is it correct to say that your client gets a piece of text with an unacceptable error? Well, that was a hypothetical measure that we used to cut off as a cutoff at this stage. So if we have one error that is unacceptable and 3 acceptable ones, this is just a threshold at which we can accept the text, and of course we then ask the translator to fix those errors. If there's more errors than that, then the text is sent back to be reprocessed, and we inform the translator that we do not approve, so to say. We're never penalized in terms of money, because we believe that they are either capable of doing the job right, or we should just let them go. And I have to say that I've been here for 7 years. I mean, in the field of localization with the team. We let go 2 translators only, I believe, and the rest is doing just fine, and there's 40 of them. Hello, Mikhail. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. You mentioned lower costs and better speed for the translator and the editor, but do you have any actual measurements? I mean, say your translator is supposed to process a certain amount of text per hour, then how much better it becomes with the MTP? According to what they measure, it is from 5 to 50%, somewhere in that range. But we do not use this as an indicator. I mean, the speed of translation. We have a task and we have a deadline. And so the translator is supposed to complete the task before the deadline set. And it is up to them how they distribute the time, how they manage it, because this is their task and they should somehow deliver, but it does not impair our indicators, I mean the rest of the indicators, whether the translator spends an hour or 3 hours on it.
So the translator ended up receiving less money for conducting post-editing instead of translation. I've mentioned the rates before. The translator selects the rates himself or herself. If he does not or she does not agree with the discount, they receive the full rate. Any more questions? Thank you. Yes. What time passes since the beginning of an old project before you decide to switch it over to machine translation? And also other cases when you have certain percentage of editing, post-editing, you can consider this post-edited text as translated from scratch. Good questions that I don't know the answer to, because they do not apply to us. Thing is, our older projects, they were launched several years ago, and we have several 100,000 or even million words to be used for machine translation engine training, and we did not have a project yet where we would set a certain cutoff at which we would implement the machine translation. So I cannot answer that question, unfortunately. Can you please repeat the second question? Is there a certain percentage of editing a segment at which you would consider this segment as translated from scratch? Oh yeah, got it. And we do not measure it because our payments, our rates do not follow any percentages of sorts. So no percentage affects the rates. Thank you. There don't seem to be any more questions. Misha, I'd like to say thank you. We're really grateful for your participation here, because COVID is not a pleasure to be sick with, and you've managed to participate anyway. Another point is it's a great deal that you've discussed MTP implementation within your team, with your translations. This is something to strive for. I'm going to be talking about something similar at my presentation at 4 p.m. And we can see that the number of questions indicates that this topic is quite hot, quite popular. Thank you. It was a pleasure seeing you all and hearing you all. Thanks.